For today's topic, uh, this one I had to do a lot of research for because it's a good topic. Grief, okay? And especially in the sense of it's something that we all have to deal with, something that we all experience. Grief, okay? So, if we look at it psychologically, you'll always hear about these stages of grief, right? In psychology, they say that you have this denial period, this period of anger, where it's just like you're always unhappy, you're always unable to keep your cool, you're just angry about the situation, you're not really accepting it. You start to bargain. This one's like you're going kind of spiritual, saying, "Oh, I want to do goodness and make. I hope this will happen. Hope this will happen instead. Please bring them back, let them fix." Then there's that time where it's just depression, where everything's just gray. It's all black and white. You just have no color in your life. This is very, very common until eventually there's acceptance and you're able to start to move forward, or really start to move forward in the process of letting go. It takes a long time, and even though they say these are stages, in reality you don't really go one by one of each stage. It can jump around sporadic. You can even get to the acceptance stage and then jump back to anger and bargaining all over again, back to depression, because in reality they're not stages. They're all just parts of things that will happen through our process, because everyone goes through the process differently. So don't ever feel like, oh, I'm going backward because now I'm going back into denial or something like that. Everyone's different. It's your path. The important thing is, if we look at psychology, they have a lot of very good ways of how can we start to process that grief. Starting from expressing into words or a creative outlet. That's why people will do expressive painting, drawing, etc. There are many different things you can do. One very important one, I believe, is connecting with others, having time with other people, having time with friends, with family, etc. Asking for help. You can't do it alone, and sometimes you really do need the help. Getting some help is always good. They talk about deep breathing. You can also say our meditation. Even setting up some realistic goals, things that we can do each day. Then self-care, having enough sleep, getting enough movement, eating healthy, keeping hydrated. Even rehearsing how you respond to questions. For example, people will be talking to people who might be talking about this and that, and you start to kind of just start to practice how you would respond to help you keep your cool as best you can, or be able to not need to be unhappy or pull yourself back down. So these are all very good ways to help you process. Now, in Buddhism, they're actually very, very similar, in the sense that we do say there are these stages, although we don't really call them stages. It's just this is all the experience of being human. Because as the Buddha realized, when there's gain, there's also loss. And loss has all these experiences. When we lose something, we don't want to lose it, of course. We have denial, we have anger, we start bargaining, we have depression. It's just a lot less than grief, because grief is when it's a very, very big, very important loss. But the main thing that's very different is our acceptance, but also there's also compassion. So here's a story in Buddhism that happened during the Buddha's time. It's a story of Kisagotami. And what happened is, this lady, unfortunately, her child passes away. Her child dies. And during this time, she's in complete denial, and she just won't believe that her child has passed away. So she's going from home to home, doctor to doctor, asking for a cure to save her baby. And to the point where someone finally says, "You know what? Here, why don't you go and see the Buddha? He's amazing. He can probably heal it." So she finally goes to see the Buddha. And when she goes to see the Buddha says, "Yes, there actually is a way you can." He says, "Okay, yeah, if you want a cure, there is a cure." He says, "Go look for a mustard seed from someone's home." But the thing is, back then, mustard seeds was like salt and pepper in everyone's house. Everyone has it, right? So everyone would be very happy to give it to you. But he said it had to be from a home that has never had death in the family. So immediately she's thinking, wow, great, I can find someone who might have the cure for my baby who just passed away. So she goes out from house to house, one house to the next, going to this house. Hello, can I have some mustard seeds? They're like, oh yes, of course. And she goes, oh wait, but has anyone ever died in this household? She's like, oh yes, we've had this person pass away, this person pass away. Oh, okay. Then she goes to another house, asks again, and every time there's always someone had passed away. And she keeps hearing about these stories of how they've all lost someone. It starts to make her realize and rethink and start to be aware, to finally accept. She finally accepts it, realizing, yeah, this is loss. Now for her, after she finally accepts this, she starts to practice more, and eventually she ordains to become a nun, and she eventually enlightens. So this is a story in the Buddhist time talking about grief, but it's also a very extreme case in this case. So how do we use this, or understanding it, in today's world? So with that acceptance, we have to look at all the teachings that he taught us. Right from the beginning, the Four Noble Truths. That first one, how it's translated, says there's suffering. There's a beginning to suffering. There's an end to suffering. There's a way to end it, right? That's the Four Noble Truths. The translation that I learned, the original one, what it really means is not just there is suffering, but life itself is suffering. If you really think about it, everything we do in life is suffering. When we eat, we think we're enjoying it, but what happens? If we don't eat, we're suffering. We need to eat. And then what happens when we're finished eating? We might be too full. Oh, now I'm too full. Now you're suffering because you're full. And then after that, then you're suffering because it needs to come out. You see, we're suffering every step of the way. Even breathing, things that we do normally to keep us alive. We breathe in, breathe out, we're comfortable. What if you breathe in but don't breathe out? You'll die. What if you breathe out but don't breathe in? You'll also die. It's a continuous cycle that we have to keep doing to keep us alive. We're quite literally always suffering. So, by knowing this, it's a way of seeing that this is the reality. We are of a nature to sicken. We are a nature to age. We are a nature to die. Just in the evening chanting that we do. To remind ourselves not to be reckless with our time, to be aware that this is the nature of life. This is the nature of everything. There's a beginning. It starts to decay, gets old. It can get sick if it's alive, and it can die. It will end. This is a cycle that happens with everything. So taking the time to really think about it, it helps us start to be more aware. Well, at the same time, I came across this quote from a Zen Studies podcast, and she said, "Grief is love in the face of loss. Do you want to stop living or stop loving in order to stop feeling grief?" So in this case, what she was trying to say is that we should be aware of the grief, experiencing the grief. But I slightly don't agree with, because in this case, she was talking about how many times we look at Buddhism and we talk about detachment and how we don't hold on to it anymore. And that's how you show that you're enlightened. So if you have no grief, you don't have grief because you're enlightened. Not quite. As people are living, it's more so learning how to detach when needed. So I want to talk about how the difference between detachment and not loving. So one thing that I have always I've experienced with other people is detachment. Think of attachment is like a notebook with a lot of paper, okay? Or you can have a notebook and it has paper inside, but it's all glued together. It's attached, right? And then suppose we rip a page out. How's the notebook now? Even the paper, it's ripped. It's not quite clean cut. It's just it's ripped and tears all over, right? So that is us when we still have attachment. It's not very clean. It's actually there's still a scar, quite literally. Compared to if the notebook had perforated pages. Perforated pages are the ones with the tiny little holes that make it easier for it to just bend and then pull it so it's a clean cut. So you don't have to use scissors or anything like that. Practicing detachment is like having those perforated pages. It's not that you are not completely cutting off completely, but it's more, I'm still loving, but I'm able to detach when it's time to go, because that disconnect or that loss, it's part of life. It's natural. It's going to happen. So this is why we practice detachment, practicing in the sense of starting to be aware of this reality, this inevitability. Everyone will pass. Everyone will die. I will die one day. But it's not, yes, we know suffering is there, but Buddha never said, well, just sit there and take it, okay? Because no matter what, life is suffering. No. He gave us this understanding so we can be aware of it. And then if you're thinking that, well, am I supposed to not love? Am I not supposed to have attachments of any kind? Not quite. Attachments are what make us human, what helps us grow. We learn from each other. We definitely have some attachment. But the attachment doesn't mean we don't have to hold on so tightly to the point where it's that torn page. And it's just a big, long, really sad-looking scar, right? So, like, for example, if my parents were to die, I'm still very fortunate they're both alive. And I'm very, very close to them. So if they were to pass, of course I'm going to feel sorrow. I'm going to feel sad. I'm probably going to go through many of those stages. But I know that I'll be able to move forward a little bit easier thanks to my practice of meditation. A way that helped me keep my calm, to be able to move forward, to still be able to function. It's not that I'm not going to feel. Even if you reach enlightenment, it's not that you don't feel, but you're allowing yourself to move forward. You can still function while still having that in the background, instead of having it overwhelm you. You're able to overcome it. So it's a process. We practice little by little. As you start to meditate more and more, finding that peace within, it helps you keep that peace with you. This is why we keep practicing. So detachment is not loving, okay? It's practicing to change our pages to be perforated, so that if we have to say goodbye, we're ready to go. So that it hurts a little less. There's less scar. You're able to move from the experience of right now that can be quite painful, to moving it over to making it information of history. And yes, it takes time. It's not like, oh, I've reached a deep level of meditation, I can do it right away. Not quite. You'll still feel it. I've met many monks who the meditation's quite really good, but yeah, when they lose someone very important, their family member, their mother, their father, someone who's close, they still feel the same pain. But it's because of the practice to help us start to detach little by little. Okay? So it's not that you're not going to love, and it's not that you're cutting them off to the point where you're just cold or not feeling anything. That's not it either. Okay? So that's where we go. So then the next part, after all this, after us accepting it, understanding this, because of our understanding, we had that understanding of Dharma, it helps us start to realize this will happen to everyone. Everyone will experience this. It's not just me. But the fact that you got to experience it right now, it helps you open up to say, wow, thanks for the Dharma helping me realize this is not just me. Everyone. And because of that, you'll start to have compassion, this feeling or wish for no one to have suffering, for no one to have suffering at all. It will start to come out of your heart, come out almost automatically. And compassion can't go without loving kindness, the feeling of wishing others to be happy. So these are the things that happen almost automatically if you also practice with Dharma. Because after you start to cope, the thing is, it really can go two directions. If you're still going in the path of the light, you tend to turn into compassion. You start to feel empathy for others. But if you're a little on the darker side, it can change into a revenge, feeling I've lost this person thanks to this because of this person. Then you start to become very vengeful. So it really can go two directions. It's all up to who are you around, what mental state you're at. When you're with people, when you're with good people, your people, it will help you get out of it a lot easier. Even if you just hang out together and not do anything. Yes, even simply just being together can be quite helpful. So this is the thing that will happen. So a summary of everything, just to make it a little bit easier to put together. Acknowledge and allow your emotions. Okay? Your emotions are real and your emotions are valid. It's okay to feel. All right? If you feel grief, you feel bad about it, it's okay. Even if you've been meditating for years. Okay? Feeling is not a bad thing. Right? From there, seek support. Have some time to be with people. Okay? Have self-care. Care for yourself is very important too. Express. Have time to express yourself in a very healthy way, whether it be through painting, exercise, etc. There are many different ways you can do it. Express yourself. Meditate, of course, because the meditation will help you find some balance and also help you start to let go. And after you start to let go, you'll start to be able to move on. And this is pretty much what we need to do. In the most simplest summary possible, we have to assemble. Yeah, I made this up yesterday. Okay, we assemble. Okay, yes, the last one's a M to the side. Assemble. But it's a good way to help you realize why assemble, because it's a reason to find your people. You guys are all lucky here in the Zoom room. These are your people. To be with them, to help you grow and help you move forward. Or whoever your friends are. Sometimes it's just meeting people who have similar likes that help you enjoy again, instead of feel like you're still in that dark area. So I hope you all keep practicing. Meditation can be quite a wonderful tool. But in the end, if you're going through grief, please do practice. Do your best to assemble. Okay?
That's all for this episode. We will go to the deeper detail in the next one.